the message that arrived at 2:17 a.m. I didn't wake up to the buzz, I woke up to the silence after. The apartment had a way of swallowing sound, as if the concrete walls were holding their breath. The screen of my phone dimmed with a soft sigh, but the damage was done. 2:17 a.m. A single notification glowed like an ember on the nightstand. Front door unlocked. I watched the ceiling and counted my heartbeats. The lock is digital. My thumbprint is one key, Leela's is the other. We added the feature the week after our wedding, in the same burst of optimism that made us alphabetize our spice rack and buy a lemon tree for the balcony. Our home should be smart, she said, so we can be stupid in love. Beside me, Leela slept facing away, her breath steady, the outline of her shoulder a pale slope beneath the sheet. My wife, with her impeccable calendars and soft laughter, her head always slightly tilted when she listened. My wife, who was in bed, while our door had been unlocked and then locked again at 2:18 a.m., according to the second notification that landed like a period on a sentence I hadn't written. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could. The hallway felt colder in the dark, a blue hush. I passed the framed map of Santorini we'd never made it to and padded into the living room. Everything was tidy. No unfamiliar shoes by the mat. No jacket on the back of a chair. The lemon tree leaned toward the glass like a polite guest waiting to be invited inside. I stood there for too long, listening for a sound that never came, until the night pressed on my chest and I went back to bed. The next morning, Leela brewed coffee and hummed through her hair in a towel, a small halo of steam around her. "You were restless," she said. "Bad dream." "Work," I lied. "The Cairo project." She smiled the way you smile at someone who still thinks the magic trick hasn't been discovered. "Then promise me to stop working before breakfast," she said, pushing a mug toward me. I promised. She kissed my cheek. In small, warm gestures like that, a life can feel airtight. The day didn't give me permission to forget, though. At the office, the message sat in the back of my mind like a pebble in a shoe. Two things kept snagging my attention: the silence of the living room and the second lock notification. Unlocked. Locked again. No motion alerts from the internal camera because on Thursdays we turn them off when we sleep. Leela hates the tiny pulsating light. A preference I had indulged for love, and now I resented in a petty, miserly way that made me feel cheap. At lunch, I scrolled through the lock app logs. There it was, 2:17 a.m., the door unlocked by guest code 3. Not my thumbprint, not Leela's. A guest code I'd set months ago for the dog walker we used for a week and never again. I had forgotten to delete it. I could have told myself a story then, a harmless one. Maybe a misfire, a glitch. But guest codes don't misfire, they're either used or they are. I stared at the tiny timestamp until the seconds became a tunnel. At 5, as I packed my laptop, a message arrived from an unknown number. "You left your jacket at the bar last night. I'm in the lobby." There was an image, too. A charcoal jacket draped over a chair I recognized from a place a few blocks away, Verona's, where the tables are too close and everyone pretends not to listen. I've never been good with suspense. It burrows under my skin and grows teeth. I texted back, "Be right down," then took the elevator past the lobby and stepped out into brightness that felt theatrical. She was waiting by the revolving door. Small, neat bones, a clean haircut, black turtleneck. She held my jacket like evidence. "You weren't here last night," she said by way of introduction. "But they were." "Who?" She looked past me as if someone might be eavesdropping. "Layla and a man in a navy suit. She called him Ames or James, hard to tell. They sat in your spot. The bartender told me you liked the corner." I felt the world narrow until only our breaths fit there. "Why tell me?" Because I know what it feels like. Her smile was precise and painful. I'm Ava. We walked to Verona's, because where else do you go with a stranger who has dropped a grenade into your afternoon? The bar smelled like lemon and gin, and the waiter seated us 2 tables over from the corner, as if the room itself had a conscience. Ava didn't waste time. I was here with someone last night, she said. He's not my someone officially. He's precisely the kind of man who loves precision. He said his name was James. Navy suit, hair combed so carefully you could measure the spaces between the teeth. I nodded without meaning to. The image had weight, a man built like a conclusion. I saw your wife before he did, Ava continued. She walked in and he stood up as if pulled by a string. They hugged like old coworkers, but the second hug was longer. Did they see you? Ava's mouth twisted. No, I'm good at invisibility when it's required. I didn't know who she was until I saw her swipe a card with your last name on it. I have a memory for names. We're not on a joint card, I said, and immediately hated how tender that felt, as if I wanted to shield us from her report. We keep our accounts separate. Ava shrugged. Must have been the loyalty program. She had to spell your last name. I overheard because I wanted to. And then you texted me because. Because no one had done it for me, she said. Because maybe it's kinder to be cruel before the cruelty arrives by itself. The drinks came and sat between us like a decision. When she touched her glass, I noticed the pale half-moon scar on her wrist. It looked like a healed bite. She caught me looking and rotated her arm so it was hidden again. Do you want me to stop? She asked. I wanted 100 things at once. To stand up and go home. To demand the bartender play back a tape the bar didn't have. To sink into Ava's voice like a tide. No, I said. Tell me everything. They weren't loud and they weren't careful. That's a dangerous combination. She traced a wet ring on the table. He said, I can't come by Saturday. It will be too obvious. She said, then don't. I'm tired of hiding. He said, then stop. She laughed. Ava looked up at me. It wasn't a cruel laugh. It sounded like someone leaning against a locked door and deciding to push. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until my vision ticked at the edges. How long? Too long for a first time, shorter than a last time. He touched her wrist like he was memorizing the shape. When they stood, he paid in cash and she adjusted her hair for the mirror she wasn't looking at. Ava lifted her glass. They went out the back. I went out the front. In the jacket, I asked. She smiled, small and not kind to either of us. That part is my bit of theater. I didn't have your number. I asked the bartender who always complains that you don't tip enough for how long you sit. He said you were nice but distracted. You left your jacket once in March and he texted you. He still had your number. I believed her. I believed the bartender, the loyalty points, the back door. Belief felt like bracing, necessary and insufficient. I took a sip, and my throat burned the way it does after a sprint. Why are you telling me, really? I asked. Do you want me to hurt with you, or do you want me to save you from your James? She tilted her head, considering. Maybe I want to trade truths, she said. It's cleaner that way. Clean, I repeated. The word sounded like the opposite of what we were. That night I lay next to Lila and felt the distance between us like weather. She kept her phone screen face down on the nightstand. At 11:34, when her breathing deepened, she rolled closer and draped her arm over me, as if her body were choosing before her mind dared. I wanted to be unkind, to peel her hand away finger by finger, to make a small scene in a room made for small scenes. Instead, I rested my palm on the curve of her shoulder and counted her breaths until I knew my own again. The next morning, I made a choice that had the shape of bravery and the taste of pettiness. I texted the guest code to my own phone to see if the lock would log it. It did. And there, buried among old entries, was a string of 2:00 a.m. and 1:43s and 12:19s, a constellated truth I had never thought to read. Not every night, not even most, but enough. I went to Verona, alone, and sat with my untouched drink, my jacket on the chair back exactly how Ava had held it. The bartender poured me water without asking. "You okay?" he said, then flinched as if he'd broken the unspoken pact to leave slow men alone. "Did you see them again?" I asked. He cleaned an already clean glass. "I see everyone, that's my curse." "What's his name?" "James," he said, "or something that feels like a name you give when you want to be harder to find." I left a tip that would embarrass both of us if we remembered it later and walked into a wind that made my eyes water. Leela messaged me, running late. "Love you." She always added the period. "Love you," as if even affection had to arrive on time and with punctuation. I could have confronted her that evening. I rehearsed it on the walk home. I imagined saying her name softly and carefully, like setting down a cup without clinking. I imagined the way her face would tilt, the way her throat would tense. I imagined her reaching for certainty the way she reaches for the edge of a counter when she's thinking. But when I turned the key and saw her on the floor cross-legged, flipping through an old album of us, Paris, the little bridge near the Musée Carnavalet where a man played a violin, my script dissolved. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Looking for proof we were always this," she said, smiling without looking up. "It's for the wall. I thought maybe the bedroom needs more laughter." "What does the bedroom need?" I said, and the question came out like a stranger. She looked up, blinking, the album balanced on her knees. "Are you all right?" she asked. There it was again, the chance to tell the truth and be whatever telling the truth makes you. Cowardice arrived first and set the table. "I'm fine," I said. "Work." That night she kissed me like a memory trying to take root again. Her hair fell in my face and I didn't move it. Let it smell like shampoo and something softer. It would be easier, I thought, to accept a version of our life where she had chosen me forever, and the other thing was a shadow cast by someone else's worry. But even easy things take a toll. Ava texted 2 days later. "He's at the Metropole, room 814. An address followed and a time, now." I wrote back, "What do you want me to do with this?" "Whatever you needed someone else to do for you," she replied. I took a car. The Metropole was the kind of hotel that has more marble than patience. The elevator ride to 8 was slow enough to change my mind between floors and fast enough to keep me from finishing. I stopped in the corridor. 814 was at the far end. The carpet muffled everything. I could have walked, knocked, demanded narrative like a debt. Instead, I waited. After 13 minutes, the door opened and she came out. Her hair was pinned, her mouth soft from kissing or sleep. She wore a navy coat I'd given her for her birthday, the inside stitched with a phrase she loved, "Stay tender." Behind her, a man in a navy suit straightened his cuffs with the care of a surgeon. He was handsome in a way that felt hostile. He reached for her elbow, a gesture that said habit. Leela saw me first. The hallway contracted to a point. "Oh," she said, and then again in a smaller voice, "Oh." "Hello, James," I said, because the opposite of cowardice is sometimes just a good guess. His eyes assessed me like furniture. "I think you've got the wrong." "Don't," Leela said, not unkindly. To me she said, "Evan, come inside." I imagined stepping into that room and closing the door on an old self. Instead, I leaned my shoulder against the wall. "No," I said breezily, astonishing both of us with the casual tone. "Here is fine." A silence with teeth. James, if that was his name, looked like a man unused to being denied his setting. "We should." "You should go," Leela said to him without looking. "Please." He hesitated, then left the way a man leaves a scene he believes is beneath him. The elevator swallowed him whole. I watched the light above the door descend, 7, 6, 5, like the end of a countdown. Leela leaned against the opposite wall, mirroring me, the coat open over the dress I had watched slip to the floor many times. It struck me, absurdly, that the dress might be wrinkled and she would have to steam it later. Clarity arrives in stupid clothes. "You knew," she said. "Not knowing was work," I said. Knowing became the only thing I could do without effort. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were the eyes of someone who has already confessed and is waiting for a verdict. "I met him at a fundraiser," she said. "He was clever in a way I wanted to argue with. I tried not to. I failed." "How long?" I asked in old ritual. 3 months, she said, and then 2 months of telling myself it wasn't what it was. "Last night," I said, and the hotel breathed around the word. "Last night," she agreed. "I thought about not going. I thought about going and not staying. I stayed." She said it like a line rehearsed to retain dignity. I found that I loved her more for the bluntness and also less, in a way that made me wonder if love had a ledger I had never balanced. "Did you use the guest code?" I asked, because sometimes small questions keep you from asking the ones that break you. "I did," she said, a hand to her throat. "I meant to tell you I needed it again for the cleaning woman, and then I didn't tell you because I liked having a secret with a door." "Is this where you tell me the door is closed?" I asked. "Or is it where you ask me to help you close it?" She took a step nearer. Her perfume did the mean thing perfume does, threading memory through the present. "I came here to end it," she said. "I asked him to meet me so I could say it aloud. Then ending something that made me feel powerful made me feel small. I didn't want to be small." "You didn't look small," I said, and even I heard the cruelty I had not intended to show. "I don't want forgiveness," she said. "I want to know if I can be terrible and still be yours." That sentence cracked something delicate and old inside me, like ice giving way under a boot. I thought of the lemon tree, leaning toward the light as if it believed the glass would eventually disappear. I moved toward her until the breath between us was a single, shared thing. She didn't reach for me first, and neither did I. The hall smelled like carpet cleaner and the kind of quiet that demands an answer. "If I say yes," I said, "I need a different life than the one we've been pretending to live." "What kind?" she asked. "The kind where you tell me before it becomes a hotel," I said. "The kind where we can be stupid and smart and still somehow honest." Her mouth tipped upward, tired and hopeful. "I can try," she said, "but trying isn't a promise." "No," I said, "it's an entrance. The exits come with it." We took the elevator down, not touching, two people practicing the choreography of strangers who know too much. Outside, the air was thin with evening, the sky the color of bruised fruit. She slid her hand through the crook of my arm in a motion so practiced it felt both brand new and older than us. The gesture was a question. I let it be an answer for now. On the walk home, I texted Ava, "Thank you. I did whatever it is a person does." She wrote back, "That's usually the right thing." Then, for what it's worth, I told him it was over too. It hurt like pulling a tooth at home. There was blood, but there's also quiet now. I looked at Leela beside me, her hair loosening in the wind. She inhaled, like someone who has been underwater a long time. "I'll delete the code," she said. "Don't," I answered. Change it. Give it to me. We'll decide together who gets to open our door. At home, the lemon tree had turned another degree toward the window, like a stubborn optimism. I unlocked the door with my thumb, and we crossed a threshold that felt, for once, exactly like what it was. In our bedroom, she stood by the album she hadn't hung yet and looked at a photo where I'm laughing with my eyes closed, her hand on the back of my neck. She stepped closer and leaned into me, her breath against my collar, her voice low. "I want to relearn you," she said. "Slowly, precisely. Not to tidy up what I've broken, but to discover what we didn't know we could be." I touched the line of her jaw, the small pulse near her ear. The intimacy wasn't innocent, but it was real. It had the charge of returning to a place you love after saying you never would. We kissed, not as absolution, not as proof, but as a possibility with temperature and taste. Heat rose between us in slow increments, a tide pulling us to the edge and back, the kind of closeness that asks for attention more than hunger. When we lay down, it wasn't a forgiveness we made, but a map. The routes were unpaved, promising and uncertain. Our bodies spoke the old language and tried out new accents. We stopped twice to laugh, once to breathe, once because I wanted to see her face and keep seeing it. Later, with the window cracked and the city reminding us that we were not alone in our bravery or our foolishness, Leela stroked my wrist with a thumb and said, "I'm not pure, I'm not sure, but I want this." "I don't need purity," I said. "I want our complicated." She nodded against my shoulder. The ceiling was patient. The lock was quiet. In the dark, I thought of guest codes and permanent keys, of the ways we invite and the ways we barricade. I thought of Ava's scar and her careful smile, of James's careful cuffs, of a bartender who sees too much and knows it. I thought of the lemon tree growing a fraction of an inch each day toward the light it believes in. At 2:17 a.m., my phone did not buzz. The silence felt earned. I rested my hand on Leela's back, and the rise and fall there was the oldest and newest truth I had. We were not finished. We were at the entrance. And for once, the door wasn't the problem.